Welcome back to another episode of the Dental Boardroom Podcast. I'm your host, Drew Phillips, and today we are continuing our special series on AI in dentistry, where we dive into how emerging technologies are transforming the way we run, scale, and innovate in dental practices. Joining me today is a guest from NexHealth, one of the most forward-thinking companies in dental tech. NexHealth is redefining patient communication, online scheduling, real-time EHR integration, and automation in ways that are actually usable today and not 5 years from now. They're helping practices stage their data in a way that unlocks the full potential of opportunities that AI has to offer by allowing practices to work smarter and deliver a more modern patient experience. Kyle Johnson is the head of growth at NexHealth, and I'm excited to have him on the show today to share how their tools are impacting real dental teams across the country. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yeah, great to be here. Looking forward to it.
Likewise, man. So Kyle, to get us started, could you just share maybe how you found your way to NexHealth and what your journey with them has been like thus far?
Absolutely. So I joined NexHealth January 2020. I think I was employee number 11, brought on board to take us from seed stage to Series A. And I had been in healthcare technology for about 4 years at that point. So I was familiar with the space. It was a company called PatientPop that is now merged into a company called Tebra. So I was familiar with the space, and when Al, our co-founder and CEO, reached out to me, what really stuck out was, he wasn't just trying to make another piece of software to do online scheduling or appointment reminders. He had really zeroed in on the data integration challenges into the practice management system and was laser focused on solving that. So that's ultimately what kind of really piqued my interest. This was a huge, meaty problem to solve, and that is kind of what brought me in. And here I am 5.5 years later. I can say that I can confidently see myself here another 5 years still working on this problem. It's a big one.
It is a big one, and the AI is a very far-reaching term, and there's a lot that goes into that scope. Maybe you could kind of help set the stage today for our listeners in terms of what NexHealth is doing to kind of facilitate the future of AI within dentistry and kind of the things that you guys are trying to unlock as it relates to those topics.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. AI can mean a lot of things to a lot of people right now, especially as kind of the whole topic blows up. But I think one of the fundamental things, no matter kind of what your perception of what AI is and does, it needs information, it needs inputs and outputs, right, from like patient data, practice schedule data to do anything. And so long before AI or LLMs were a household acronym, back in I think 2016, our co-founder CEO Al grabbed a summer job in the Bronx at a medical practice, these ECW, and I think within a week or two was just overwhelmed with how many tedious, time-consuming, repetitive tasks it took just to keep the office moving, just to keep the practice on the rails. And I mean, this is a tech-savvy college student who's thinking to himself, there's got to be a better way. Like, I got to be able to fix this within a couple weeks, right? And just quickly ran into wall after wall trying to get access to ECW. And I think like that personal experience is what kind of formed his kind of understanding of the data challenges within the healthcare space and led to eventually what became NexHealth. So that is fundamentally the problem that NexHealth was founded to solve, is removing these barriers, these walled gardens across all these different electronic health record systems and practice management systems, to make it easier for dentists to be able to deliver the patient experience that they want, to get better clinical outcomes, to make it easier for patients to pull all their data into a single place. So that is kind of our point of view. And if you can't do that, then it's really difficult to slap AI on top of it and magically kind of solve some of these problems, these administrative problems that kind of still plague the front office today.
What does it mean though when you say data integration challenges, right? I mean, one of the things that we do like to do here is kind of distill it down to the most basic format that we can do, and so if I know nothing about data at all, what does that all mean?
Are you looking to buy or sell a dental practice? If you're a seller, how do you find a strong list of potential buyers? There's no MLS or Zillow for dental practice sales. In such a fragmented market, many dentists selling their practice feel discouraged. That's why I built PracticeOrbit.com. Practice Orbit is modernizing how dental practices are bought and sold. It's a platform technology. Y'all know them: Zillow, Airbnb, Uber, and OpenTable, just to name a few. These technologies do two things. First, they help match buyers and sellers by centralizing the marketplace. Second, once the match between buyer and seller is made, these technologies help them navigate the sale to a successful close. Here are a few of the features inside of Practice Orbit. Users can determine a reasonable sale price for a practice in just minutes. All they need is the most recent business tax return. Practice owners can use the directory to find important service providers like practice brokers, attorneys, accountants, and bankers. Practice owners and their brokers can invite those service providers into the platform, so all parties are coordinating the sale together. Practice owners will have a beautiful digital listing of their practice, like a home on Redfin. And importantly, the listing will be anonymous, and personal information like your address, name, and pictures are only released after an NDA is signed and approved by you or your broker. Practice buyers can create saved searches to be auto-notified when new listings come on the platform that fit their desired specialty and location. And hey, dental practice brokers, you can list all your practices on the site for free. By doing so, you'll get access to Practice Orbit's large pool of buyers, all of whom have created profiles and saved searches to be auto-notified when new listings come for sale. You can use the platform to introduce your listings to a targeted set of buyers. Additionally, and optionally, you can use the platform tools such as a built-in NDA, a customizable LOI, and a workflow tool to navigate the sale from LOI to closing. In fact, you can manage all your listings on the system from listing the practice to NDA to LOI and finally to closing the deal. Create your free account today at www.practiceorbit.com.
Yeah, so I mean, if you think about it, the U.S. government, within the context of American healthcare, like they did a great job of getting providers onto, off of paper and into the digital record systems. What they didn't really incentivize was how you could use these systems. I mean, if you think about it, the primary input-output is like your eyeballs reading information off a screen and your hands, typing or clicking on things back into the system. That is a fundamental bottleneck in terms of trying to solve problems efficiently, in an automated sense. And you don't necessarily need a sophisticated AI to see that there's a gap in your calendar at 9 a.m. tomorrow and then reach out to people that are on the wait list. That's just good software. And the reason that hasn't existed, and I think the reason that AI seems really shiny in a space that has kind of been starved of good software to solve these problems, is because the software doesn't exist because it can't get access to your health record system to execute on those workflows. So you have to fill your front office with people to do all these things, proactively reach out to people, chase people down for cancellations, file paperwork, scan it into the system, and it just piles up. And so does that answer your question? I think.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so I think that to kind of go in a different direction slightly, what I know of NexHealth, which I'm a user of NexHealth's products. I've, been very intimate in terms of the background information that you guys do and share with the different practice management software systems and how you guys pull data, read and write, right? And I think that, what you guys have done well, which is create these integrations with these practice management systems to be able to extract data. And then that data is now usable in very many different, or a lot of different AI formats that other people could ultimately leverage and continue to build out their own version of what will ultimately be this sort of broader ecosystem of AI tools.
Yeah, so the fundamental challenge is that, there's literally hundreds of different practice management systems and EHRs in the country. They all have different ways of, some of them allow complete open access, and the integration problem isn't really there for them. I would say that's not the norm. A lot of them are very tightly guarded or difficult to work with. You have to have a business relationship in place first. So there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of variation between systems. There's at the kind of lowest level, when you actually start thinking about how they store and model that data, it all kind of can be different. So these are a lot of challenges for somebody that just wants to come into a space and try to solve, a specific workflow for a dentist. It's a huge amount of overhead to deal with as you're just starting up. And so that's kind of what the synchronizer that we built does. It sits on top of all of these different systems and it abstracts away all that complexity so that you can just come in and say, is operatory 4 available tomorrow at 9 a.m. for this type of procedure? No matter whether it's, Dentrix or EagleSoft or Ortho or Cloud or any of those. So that's kind of the low level data problem that we solve.
Let's maybe look at some of the core functions that you guys are already solving for, which are, really important ones, right? We'll start with online scheduling. If as long as your scheduling templates are kind of configured in a way where you have it built so where people are booking themselves, they're booking themselves in the right places at the right times in a very conducive sort of flow, right? Which is great. That's taken a pretty large burden off of the amount of phone calls that we have to facilitate. It's also created an environment where we're able to get more new patients on our schedule because we're not limited by the working hours of the day and the people in the front office, having to take action to get them there. That's by itself really wonderful, assuming it's programmed properly, which your tool allows for very customized programming, and so it's definitely very possible. But then when it starts to break down, not that your system's breaking down, but the process itself, and just in terms of the system limitations that exist today, like if I cancel an appointment, right, or I have an opening, that's while I can leverage the tools out there around online scheduling to sort of mass blast patients to fill a gap in the schedule, right? I could easily see how AI tools could be more creative and sort of solve for that more manual process that leverages the technology to make their lives more palatable than traditional phone calls and text messages used to be. But it would be an interesting thing if the AI could read the patient data and somehow, get comfortable with which patients are most likely to take these certain spots that are open, and then cycle through those patients without as much human intervention that is required today. So anyway, I'm just kind of trying to look at what you guys have built and like those areas where you see AI are, enhancing your own tools that you already have, as much as you are building that data platform to allow others to be able to come in a lot easier and do their thing.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to expand on that. I think, we obviously are very bullish on AI and are incorporating it into our actual SaaS product. We have taken probably a little bit more conservative approach. We're not rushing in and trying to just slap AI on everything, because I think that when anything is brand new and it's hyped, like you want to be careful that you're actually introducing functionality that will deliver real value, solve real problems, and not just be like an extra button, that we can point to and say, hey, we did that. And so really kind of the way we think about adding AI into our SaaS product is helping the person that's using our products, like the office manager that's logged in and chatting with patients or looking to fill gaps in the calendar for the next couple of days, to essentially help them do that workflow, that job to be done in fewer clicks. Really, we're trying to think about like how can we reduce the amount of clicks, the amount of time, the amount of mental overhead it takes to do all of these kind of jobs to be done that a front office manager would be juggling on a day-to-day basis. And so what that looks like so far is, when somebody texts you through the NexHealth product, we'll automatically suggest some responses that make sense for that type of question or patient comment. And we in our marketing kind of campaign capabilities, we have the ability to, use AI to generate text message and email content that has a high likelihood of converting and driving action, which I think could be a huge time saver. Not everybody is, the marketing could be really challenging even when you're focusing on that full time. And so it can be daunting to sit down and think about, how can I write like a great email here that goes out to, 200 people. So those are the types of things that we have AI in the product to help with today. And we are getting to the point where we'll start, but I guess I'll clarify. A lot of those things are, hey, we think you should do this, and then the person says yes, like that looks good, let's move forward. I think we're getting to the point where we're introducing functionality that both us, as the product creator and the person using the product will feel comfortable of kind of removing those confirmation steps, because we're still in this kind of world of AI where a lot of it's really good, but there's always, there's not always, but there's often kind of this thing that pops up and you're like, I wouldn't have said that. And we want to, we don't want to put our practices or our office staff in a situation where we create new problems. And I think we're getting to a point where AI is what I would call like trustworthy, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, but still, there's still checks and balances that have to be done on the human element basis, right?
Absolutely.
But you could definitely see where it's moving though. It's just trying to weed us out as quickly as it can do so.
I think that's one of the big challenges, right? Is this, with traditional software, you would call it deterministic. It's like I tell it to do this. If this happens, then this happens. Like, if I have a new patient, send them this reminder for tomorrow, and that just goes out and it works. But even with that kind of automation, I've seen our own customers during onboarding be a little apprehensive. It's like, like I'm about to turn on this automation and I hope it works like it is supposed to. And I think that's kind of one of the friction points for AI in the dental practice more broadly is it's even a little less predictable sometimes. Like generally speaking, it delivers great results, but it can be a little bit more opaque. And so I think that's probably one of the challenges that anybody kind of developing on AI in healthcare right now has to consider and kind of try to address.
What are things that NexHealth sees on the horizon for themselves in terms of, obviously we talked, preliminarily here about some things that you guys are working on, more kind of setting the foundation for probably bigger projects. But what are some things that you guys are trying to accomplish over the next year or two internally at NexHealth?
Yeah.
And this doesn't necessarily have to be AI specific, just anything in general, really.
Gotcha. We're rolling out payments capability right now for dental practices, where we can sync every single transaction directly to the ledger, and we can attribute that to the right provider. We can attribute payment to the right procedure code. We make it really easy for practices to send out detailed statements that show, contribution from the different payers and how their payment fits into that. And then physical terminals that sit in the office, and you can collect cards that way as well. So really kind of a comprehensive payment solution. We're really going deep on the finance component of the front office. So I would say, up until last 6 months, we have been really focused on a lot of the patient journey, from discovery with online reviews to getting more of them to actually book with you with online scheduling, removing paperwork with forms. And right now, I think like the big opportunity to really eliminate a lot of inefficiency and manual task and is with the payments piece, and then making that available in our synchronizer to the developers as well. So where that from a product capability standpoint, it's the payments, and then from the synchronizer, we're doing a ton of work to support more dental practice management systems for more medical EHRs, give those developers more access to those systems so they can develop, they can solve new use cases and new problems. Those are kind of the two big things we have on the horizon over the next, I would say, 12, 18 months.
And the payments piece, I mean, is that going to be a system that will allow like the patient ledger balances to be updated in the PMS sort of automatically when those transactions are completed? And
yeah, in real time. So payment happens, it immediately reconciles into the ledger. You can log into NexHealth and you have just an immediate picture of who owes what and why, how old the balances are. You have a lot of filtering, reporting capabilities. And then we have you can leverage our communication suite of tools to just, message all the people that have a balance older than a certain age or for a certain reason. And essentially eliminate the need to use things like mailed statements and collections.
Which is
a challenge. Yeah.
It's a challenge. And there's the majority of the dental market is still doing it that way, right? For the most part. But
exactly.
You're definitely seeing a big shift. I mean, it's companies like you that are innovating on that topic that is allowing that to be more digital, and more real time. What are some challenges that you guys have run into on rolling this out, if any?
Do you ever feel lost in your practice finances? And how about your personal finances? Ever wonder where your hard-earned money goes and why you're not seeing the financial progress you worked so hard for? If so, listen up. As a dental CPA and financial planner, I've created our company, Practice CFO, just for you. With almost 2 decades of experience, Practice CFO integrates great CPA services like accounting and tax, with customized financial planning, both business and personal. Think of it this way. Our dental-focused CPA services give us the x-rays we need to clinically plan your global finances and be effective financial planners. It's a highly customized approach we call the CFO model. Historically, having a CFO or Chief Financial Officer was an advantage of large corporations only. But today, Practice CFO gives that same advantage to private dental practice owners. As a client of Practice CFO, you'll be assigned one of our dedicated CFO advisors. You'll receive insightful financial reports each month, have regular financial review meetings, reduce taxes, grow your wealth, and feel more in charge of your numbers. Because we believe that in the competitive landscape of dental practice ownership today, you have to be an effective business owner, not just a capable clinician. Reach out to learn more at www.practicecfo.com.
I would say we've rolled this out to quite a few of our existing customers. So we didn't roll it out initially, kind of go wide with it to the market that wasn't already using NexHealth, and it's gone really well. There's people get access to kind of this real-time visibility into what their AR balance is, and their eyes kind of get really wide, and then we walk them through setting up. It's like, well, do you want to send a message out to these people and ask them to pay? Some of them are like over a year old, the balances, and there's a lot of apprehension or just kind of like, I don't know if this is going to work. And by the end of the call, money's already coming in, and it's showing up in the ledger. So I would say like it's been pretty smooth. And it's been smooth because we put a lot of work into this ahead of time. We've hired product and engineering staff that has deep experience in payments specifically. We've really tried to build out that expertise first. And now I think it's just educating the market that like, hey, you don't have to, fill 200 envelopes every month and chase these people manually. Like there's a better way to do it now.
Have you guys tried to quantify, even just given your current suite of products and services that you guys offer, have you guys tried to quantify the time saved?
We do, yeah, and it can vary, based on what capabilities of the product people are using, but and how they run the office, of course. But just between online forms, digitizing and eliminating paperwork and patient intake and check-in process. I mean that for most of the practices I talk to, and we've got a number of video case studies and case study materials that support this, 2 to 4 hours a day across dental and medical practices. Payments, I've heard anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes a day, not having to reconcile payments, all the way up to an hour or two. And then with like our waitlist automation and filling those gaps in the calendar automatically and preventing kind of the need to do lots of phone tag there, it can be an hour or two a day, depending on the size of the practice and patient volume. So it really adds up. For a lot of practices, that's 1,000 hours a year.
Oh, easily. I mean, just the online scheduling, the forms, the access to bulk messaging. I mean, it's obviously it's going to be relative to the practice size that you're working with, but I mean, in almost every office, it's at least a full-time person that you're ultimately saving. Not that we get rid of that person, but imagine all the good that they can do in the areas where tech hasn't really come in and made as impactful of a difference yet.
Exactly. Yep.
Creates a pretty cool experience from what I can see. Right now, technology in general, AI included, it's still pretty fragmented, right? I mean, there's hundreds of practice management software systems. There's 5, 6 really popular dental phone companies. There's kind of somebody working on each sort of segment, right? How do you envision these fragmented providers sort of coming together, whether it's through, mergers and acquisitions or it's through, APIs? Like, how do you see the future of, in maybe 10, 12, 15 years from now, how do you see all of these people that are doing an amazing job in their 1 to 4 different sort of verticals kind of coming together and being able to leverage the full horsepower of the scope of what technology and AI is trying to solve for?
It's a good question. Well, I don't have a crystal ball, so but I think we could probably look to other industries where we've seen them mature more quickly. than the healthcare space simply because there's just not this integration data problem. I think a lot of people think that innovation in healthcare is stifled because of regulation, but for a new developer, complying with something like HIPAA is super straightforward compared to having to just deal with integrating with 15 new EHR systems out of the gate. So, I think what we look at and where I think this could be going is something kind of like Shopify, what they've done for online e-commerce. I mean, you think of Shopify as this online, like kind of this online website company. If you want to sell something online, or like an online shop, you go there. And at its core, it's essentially what it is. But you configure your product catalog, and you don't have to just push it to your website. You can deploy it to Amazon or Facebook or Pinterest. There's all these different channels, like your mobile app, right? I kind of think of NexHealth becoming something like that, where you configure your availability, program your availability once, and then all the developers that build on top of the synchronizer can just leverage that, so you don't have to go through an onboarding process necessarily with 9 different companies. They just know this is how your schedule works. This is how you want to fill your calendar, as an example. So I think that there's an opportunity to help kind of standardize, not just, we don't want to just facilitate the flow of information from one system to another. We also want to just make it easier for tools to plug in and start working without having to go through, a week or two of onboarding and training for your staff. Because I think that's one of the big challenges is, you know, the front office is strapped, even if they are using tools to improve their efficiency. There's a good talent is in short supply. People are strapped. They're working hard, and it can be difficult to set time aside and add that additional tool. So where I see this going is, Synchronizer helps kind of does more than just move bits from one system to another. We help make it easier for technology companies to not only integrate with your system, but to get you up to speed faster. And in terms of how kind of these technologies come together in terms of consolidation within the space, I definitely think we're going to see it. We were already seeing it. We're seeing companies like Weave make acquisitions. They actually just acquired one of the first successful seed stage developers on the Synchronizer platform, TrueLark. And so it's kind of fun to watch that happen, where they pre-revenue, they joined the NexHealth Synchronizer platform. They built on top of that. They scaled. They got acquired by Weave. I think we'll continue to see some of the bigger players in the space, like Weave, make those strategic acquisitions instead of trying to build those capabilities themselves. And we'll definitely see a consolidation, I believe, in that type of tech.
Yeah, I mean, unless there's a new way of sharing revenue that will emerge from this, which is very possible, no crystal ball. But yeah, M&A does seem to me to be somewhat likely, just because the user experience being in one system as opposed to bopping around between 4 or 5 systems to get that full job done would be helpful. But in the short term to intermediate term, to your point, you guys are basically like the Apple Store. You've created an ecosystem where people can kind of build on top of that information, make it accessible to end users, and then which increases the pace of innovation. And then as those people innovate and they become sort of have solved a problem to a point where it's usable, that's when they become a target. That's really cool about TrueLark, though. So they kind of used your synchronizer, built their product, and then they had a successful exit. That's wonderful. I didn't know that story until today, but that's really cool.
Yeah, we're really happy for them. Really excited. They're continuing to use the synchronizer, so I think that's it's definitely a win for TrueLark, and I think it's a good example of what we're hoping to foster more of within the space.
So if we have some entrepreneurial we have plenty of entrepreneurs listening to the show, dentists that own their own practices are an entrepreneur by themselves, but just in terms of like a think tank mindset, how would developers that are curious about solving problems in dentistry, how would they be able to get connected and sort of leverage the synchronizer that you guys have taken so much time to build?
Yeah, it's a good question. And just to kind of reiterate a point you made there, we do see a lot of dentists that actually request access to the synchronizer, and they do build their own solutions. We've got one that I can speak to right now called Dentina, which I think is another great example of success on the synchronizer platform. I mean, this is a dentist who decided to make his own product 12 months ago. Started building in March, so a little bit more than 12 months, and had a product ready to go to market in 2 months with support for 85% of the dental market, all the major practice management systems, and a year later he's got 500 customers. Which is, just to put that into perspective, I mean, it took NexHealth years and years, 5+ years to get to that scale because we had to build all this stuff from the ground up. So it's really exciting to see that. The way you get started, it's really easy. I mean, it's you can go sign up. You don't have to talk to anybody. You could just go to nexhealth.com. We have a tab at the top for the API, and you can sign up for our developer portal, get an API key. You'll get access to a sandbox. You can start, playing around in the sandbox for free, and yeah, give it a spin. I would encourage anybody listening that is interested in solving, problems within the space to give it a shot.
What about if I'm a dentist listening to this and I have this great grand idea that would be wonderful, but I don't know anything about coding. I don't know anything about, APIs or how do I get. Do you know low code, no code sort of sources or options that these dentists can go to express their minds freely on while leveraging your synchronizer?
That is a great question. Now, I will caveat this by saying I haven't personally tried doing this with our own API, and I probably should. Need to set some time aside this weekend. But there are some great options out there, and I'm trying to. Oh man, I was trying to come up with the name of one that I was just taking a look at.
While you're pulling that up, I see Instagram, bits all the time, and it's like, AI is doing 70% of our coding now, or whatever. It's like, well, if AI is doing our coding and we just funnel in the idea and we have the data to play with that idea, that seems pretty reasonable and doable. However, I know that's not that straightforward yet. So
Yeah, I think don't let any I think if there's a lesson to be learned, well, it's don't let anybody tell you no. The amount of people that told Al when he was a college student he was going to drop out of college to start NexHealth and solve this data interoperability problem. I mean, literally everybody under the planet was like, you shouldn't do that.
yeah, right.
There's something to be said for conviction. I will say that having experience with some of these low code or no code platforms, you can definitely build a prototype. But it's kind of like if I wanted to do dental work and I used without any experience in dental medicine and I use ChatGPT to help guide me. It's like I might be able to be I'd be dangerous, literally.
Yeah,
I might be able to intellectually know what to do, but there is you can make a prototype. I would suggest that if you are serious and you do really want to build something that you work with a developer. These low-code tools can be really good for prototyping. It's different though once you push it into production and you have to support it with customers and real patient data and all that. So
absolutely. What's the sandbox that you guys have in there? I'm assuming it's not real patient data in there,
no.
but we're able to kind of I'm imagining this sort of translation tab or translation sort of mechanism that you've got these different practice management softwares feeding data in different formats and that going through that translation and then creating a common data set to be able to leverage. Is that a fair way of describing that?
Yeah. So I believe our sandboxes are open dental.
Got it.
But yeah, behind the but fundamentally, yeah, like it will, like the way that the data comes in and out of our API, like essentially what you're connecting your application to, the everything is the same regardless of whether it's Open Dental or Dentrix or EqualSoft or anything else. And the entire idea there is you shouldn't need to know how this system does this specific task or how they structure the data. We kind of abstract and normalize that at the API layer.
I think you answered that perfectly. So it is open dental that the sandbox is sort of kind of created upon, but ultimately, if I build something on top of that, I can trust that when it connected to a Dentrix platform, it's going to pull in and my programming is going to work all the same.
Exactly. Yep.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, awesome, man. And then yeah, I mean, what are some other things that you guys got going on that you feel or would be great to share today?
Oh man. Well, let's see. We're really focused on the payments piece. We've got a lot of exciting, I've already touched on that. We've got some exciting feature developments there. We're not done in terms of product development. Things like like basically like passing the payment fees on to the patient. So there's a number of additional improvements there that are in flux. So I think we're
Oh,
kind of.
that's cool. Are you guys gonna build bake that into your service offering, or your software offering?
Yeah, that's the plan is we'll make it an option. Obviously, it's not going to be like on by default, but for practices that, like, let's say they don't want to raise their prices, but they're feeling a little strapped from like, the operational increase in price, this could be a potential way of, protecting margin a little bit by just passing on the processing fees to the patient. And so
Do you,
we've seen, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, do you guys help with like the patient messaging for that? Because I believe there has to be a signature or something, right? Or I'm not that aware of the process, but maybe you could allude to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a bit out of my depth as well in terms of that specific
Gotcha.
detail. Yeah, but I do know that yeah we're working on kind of the details of that. There's been a lot of interest from that. The practices that we talked to, that's kind of top of the list of the request, and so that's one thing we're looking at rolling out. And then payment support for just more systems. So every dental system we support. Right now we support it for just like Eaglesoft Dentrix and Open Dental, and we want to roll that out to all the practice management systems we support. So that'll be coming soon.
Yeah, so on that point, obviously cloud-based practice management software systems are increasingly, wanted, I should say. I'm just curious, I find that a lot of the great products out there, yours included, while they have wonderful integrations with the core sort of three practice management systems, the cloud-based ones tend to give them a little bit of trouble. I'm just curious if that's a thing of the past, and the user base can expect more integrations with cloud-based platforms moving forward, or what your just general thoughts are on that idea.
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it's also worth pointing out, right, in kind of the evolution of practice management systems going from server to cloud, there's been innovation there, and yet still they're very difficult to integrate with. So it kind of just reinforces the need for the synchronizer. We do support a number of cloud-based systems like Dentrix Ascend, and those systems just work, they work differently than a lot of our server integrations. And the decision to roll payments out the way we did was largely just to get the ball rolling and with the systems that were easier for us to work with. But yeah, we have support for cloud-based systems. We have a lot in the works to improve coverage of cloud-based systems and our capabilities there, because it's definitely the trend, and I think that will continue. We'll see kind of these on-premise EHRs and practice management systems slowly die out, at least at the small business scale. They're still going to be in like the large institutional kind of space, but I don't think anybody running a private practice really wants to deal with an IT closet. So yeah.
Right, they are the future for sure. What makes them so difficult? I know that is slightly outside of your scope, but what has made the cloud integration so
Oh, it's a
difficult?
good question. So the if you think about it, I mean, like if you think about it in kind of simple terms, the server integration is easy because the data is literally just sitting there in your office. And so you really have more control over it, and of the data and who has access to it. And when you're doing a cloud-based EHR, you're running that in your browser, and that is not talking to a server in your office. It's phoning home, and so the access model is just fundamentally different. The location of the data itself is different. Now, the ownership of the data, and like from a legal perspective, it's still your data as the practice, but from a kind of integration perspective, it presents challenges because we essentially, like as the synchronizer, basically just needs to be running in your browser, which is just a different architecture. It works differently than if you have like the actual server sitting in your office. Does that make sense?
I can imagine. Yeah, no, it does, and I can imagine, server like hardware servers were designed to be as connectable as possible. If that's even a word. Whereas the cloud infrastructure was probably built to be less less so. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think that makes sense completely
And
to me
maybe
at
just to
least.
crystallize it further, I mean, like if it's a server in your office, I mean, you can just install other things on your server, right? But you can't go to Dentrix Ascend and say, hey, wherever you're running my Dentrix Ascend, I want you to also run this program. They're gonna say absolutely not. So
Right.
yeah,
Because that increases the amount of, on-site servers that they have to, the computer farms, as they say, but yeah, server farms.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So you essentially give up some control and access for the convenience is essentially the trade-off. Yeah.
Something I ask everybody on the show is, if you have any, podcasts or just resources or talking heads out there that you subscribe to kind of stay on the forefront of the next wave of dentistry and things that that we should be looking out for. Are there anything that you'd like to share on that front in terms of great content out there that you subscribe to?
Oh man, I do like listening to the DEO, Dental Entrepreneurs, and I gotta say,
That's a good one.
probably over the last, well, that's probably been the only one I've been paying closer attention to recently. So I gotta admit, I'm not maybe the best person to ask that question, but I do like the DEO. I think they do a good job, and I do peruse. I don't know if they have a podcast, but I think Dental Economics has good articles, good resources. Yeah, focus on kind of the more business angle and entrepreneur angle there.
Well, Kyle, man, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show today. I really appreciate you joining. If there's any last words or that you'd like to share or how people can get connected with you guys, obviously nexhealth.com is a great place, I'm sure. But no, please drop anything that you'd like to for how people can get connected with you again.
Absolutely, yeah. I really enjoyed the time today. Appreciate it. Appreciate having me on. Happy to come back and talk.
Oh, we're definitely going to have to get you back.
Yeah, yeah. We got some exciting stuff coming up that I can't talk about yet, unfortunately, and I don't want to be a tease, um, but it's kind of been 5 years in the works to get to where we're at today, and hopefully we can come back and talk about some of the cool partnerships that are in progress. I will say that if your front office is struggling, with tedious repetitive tasks, that's something that we can easily help them solve for. The ROI is clearly demonstrable, and the patient experience is clearly elevated as well. It's a win-win for both the practice and the patient. And so to learn more, you just go to nexhealth.com. You can request a demo there. You can give us a call through our 800 number. We'd happy to give you a walkthrough of the product and help you estimate kind of the impact it would have on your practice with a quick call. So that's what I would recommend. Yeah, and um, that's what I got. Yeah.
Cool. Kyle, thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Till next time.